But this is the question: which of God's creatures, which of God's children does he not want to redeem? So one of the questions been asked is, what is it all about? That's sort of a loaded question, and also let me translate it into maybe an even more common question: is what's the meaning of life? What's all this whole world about? Well, it's all about having a mystical life. Mystical life, meaning a life where you're interacting with God on a very deep personal level. This isn't the evangelical. Um, this is not the evangelical personal relationship with Jesus. This is more deep than that. This is coming to understand that everything in the universe is an emanation of God. The whole passage where they in the New Testament, where they talk about render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and render unto God what is God's. A lot of times they use that as a um, explanation as to why you should pay your taxes. But if you actually pay attention, Jesus, before he says that, he goes through and says, well, everything in the earth is God's. The air is God's, the water is God's, the earth is God, the gold is God, every precious second that ticks by is God's. And we're just borrowing it for a little while. So when he says, render unto Caesar's that which is Caesar's, well, nothing is Caesar's, everything is God's. And that's part of that understanding that everything is an emanation of God. And if we start to understand that everything is an emanation of God, that means that every human being is sacred. Every blade of grass is sacred. Every hair and fiber of dirt on my little kitty cat over here is sacred. Everything is sacred because God created it. God emanated it. It all vibrates in harmonious glory to the Lord. Um, so, so what is it all about? Well, it's about understanding who you are, understanding that the world is all one thing. The whole universe is one thing. And that gets that Jewish concept of echud, which comes from the Shema, which is Shema, O Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echud, which translates as, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And that number one is translated from Echud, but that's not the Jewish word for one, Hebrew word for one. Echud has a deeper meaning. It's more fulfillment, totality, completion. I like to say Echud means is. God is. The Lord our God is. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, us human beings seem to need some kind of structure to our lives. We need rules and regulations for some reason. And, God gave us the 10 Commandments according to Jewish tradition. And then the Jewish people and Moses came up with the law of Moses, which is 619, if I remember the number right, 619 laws you have to follow to be a good Israelite. And when Jesus was around, the Pharisees who kept the law, the Pharisees kept the law very well, came to Jesus and asked him, what's the most important law? Trying to, get him stuck in an argument. And Jesus said, all of the law of Moses, so all those 619 laws, not the 10 Commandments, but those 619 laws, are but the perversions of men. On this hangs all the law. Love God with all your heart, all your soul, your might. Love your neighbor as yourself, and do not judge. It's actually a pretty simple guideline there. Love God, love your neighbor, which is everybody, and inherently love yourself. And if we love everybody, we don't sit in judgment. We meet them where they are. That doesn't mean that we give them excuses for bad behavior, but we try to understand who they are and still love them regardless. That can sometimes be hard, loving the pedophile, loving the murderer. But this is the question: which of God's creatures, which of God's children does he not want to redeem? And that's really the answer right there, because Jesus wants everybody to seek forgiveness. Hitler, Stalin, Jeffrey Dahmer, any of the heinous people you can think of. God wants them, Jesus wants them to find salvation. And I think that's the point about religion, is we all, in our own little cultures, we get glimpses and clues, and we construct systems of belief based on our understandings. That doesn't mean that we're right. Also doesn't mean that we're wrong. But we shouldn't think we have a stranglehold on salvation or understanding the divine. The analogy I like to use is if you look at the rainbow and say it's red, and I look at the rainbow and say it's blue, and somebody else looks up and says it's green, and somebody else says it's yellow, none of us are right, yet none of us are wrong. The real answer is the rainbow is many, many colors, and a whole bunch of colors we can't even see, because we can't see ultraviolet, we can't see infrared, but it's there. Butterfly can see it. Fly can see it. Cats, they say, can see infrared. So what is it all about? Love. Simple truth. Love. Love encompasses it all.